The value of war for the political and moral development of mankind has been criticized by large sections of the modern civilized world in a way which threatens to weaken the defensive powers of the states by undermining the warlike spirit of the people. Such ideas are widely disseminated in Germany, and whole strata of our nation seem to have lost that ideal enthusiasm which constitutes the greatness of its history. And that is the old territorial logic. Under the many-sided influence of such views and aspirations, the wish for peace, we seem entirely to have forgotten the teaching which once the old German Empire received with astonishment and indignation, that the rights of states can only be asserted by the living power, that what was won in war can only be kept by war, and that we are cramped as we are by political and geographical conditions require the greatest efforts to hold and to increase what we have won. We are accustomed to regard war as a curse and refuse to recognize it as the greatest factor in the furtherance of culture and power. The text and the feeling of security which prevailed in the majority of the population in Europe, although not in the military elites and parts of the diplomacy, an arms race had been going on for years among the countries of Germany, France, and the United Kingdom. Social Darwinism inspired some politicians, officers, and groups of nationalists to pursue aggressive rearmament and to further nationalism. However, as late as the summer, the British Foreign Secretary had instructed his private secretary to make confidential inquiries so as to explore the possibility of rapprochement. No one wanted a general war, and it could have been avoided. And it's also described the disbelief and shock which followed the outbreak of war. The coming of war took most Europeans by surprise, and their initial reaction was disbelief and shock. They had grown used to peace. The century since the end of the wars had been the most peaceful one Europe had known since the Empire. True, there had been wars, but these had been far off colonial ones, like the Zulu Wars in Southern Africa, on the periphery of Europe, like the Crimean War, or short and decisive war. It is exactly the disruption of the feeling of safety, progress, and wealth which made the outbreak and result of the war so paradigmatic in Europeans, indeed, world history. The war shook Europe, leaving the continent crippled, and is described the feeling of the evening of August the 3rd, the day Great Britain went to war. That night, as the lamps were being lit in the summer dusk, standing in the windows of his room in the Foreign Office, overlooking St. James Park, the lamps are going out all over Europe. We shall not see them lit again in our lifetime. And, in a figurative sense, he was right. The outbreak of the war was a shock, and it meant the end not only and a fairly carefree optimism, but also of Europe's role as the world's dominating continent, and it marked the beginning of an era of conflicts on the continent as well as outside, which would last until the end. The period is seen as the historic conflict event, only broken by periods of ceasefire, and still influencing our lives today, more than 100 years later. In this sense, the Great War has proven to be just as important as the 30 Years' War, if not more. The importance of World War in shaping world affairs is unquestionable, and a large number of books have already been written. So, why another book? We have 3 series of garments, First and foremost, as mentioned already, the war shaped today's world politically and economically. So one cannot simply be finished with it and proceed in Europe, particularly, but also in, for example, the Middle East. One has to return to it again and again in order to understand the world of today. Our book brings new contributions to the war's influence on softer elements and beyond military history and politics, which is the second argument. And in those days, the angel Uriel answered and said to me, Behold, I have shown thee everything, Enoch, and I have revealed everything to thee, that thou shouldest see his sun and this moon, and the leaders of the stars of the heaven, and all those who turn them, their tasks and times and departures. And in the days of the sinners, the years shall be shortened, and their seed shall be tardy on their lands and fields. And all things on the earth shall alter and shall not appear in their time. The rain shall be kept back, and the heavens shall withhold it. And in those times the fruits of the earth shall be backward and shall not grow in their time, and the fruits of the tree shall be withheld in their time. And the moon shall alter her order and not appear at her time. And in those days the sun shall be seen, and he shall journey in the evening on the extremity of the great chariot in the west, and shall shine more brightly than accords with the order of light. And in many chiefs of the stars shall transgress the order, and these shall alter their orbits and tasks, and not appear at the seasons prescribed to them. And the whole order of the stars shall be concealed from the sinners, and the thoughts of those on the earth shall err concerning them, and they shall be altered from all their ways. Yea, they shall err and take them to be gods. And evil shall be multiplied upon them, and punishment shall come upon them, so as to destroy all. And he said unto me, Observe, Enoch, these heavenly tables, and read what is written thereon, and mark every individual fact. And I observed the heavenly tablets, and read everything which was written, and understood everything, and read the book of all the deeds of mankind, and of the children of flesh, that shall be upon the earth to the remotest generations. And forthwith I blessed the great Lord, the King of glory forever, in that he has made all the works of the world. And I extolled the Lord because of his patience, and blessed him because of the children of men. And after that I said, Blessed is the man who dies in righteousness and goodness, concerning whom there is no book of unrighteousness written, and against whom no day of judgment shall be found. And those 7 holy ones brought me and placed me on the earth before the door of my house, and said to me, Declare everything to thy son Methuselah, and show to all thy children that no flesh is righteous in the sight of the Lord, for he is their creator. 1 year we will leave thee with my son, till thou givest thy commands, that thou mayest teach thy children and record for them, and testify to all thy children. And in the 2nd year they shall take thee from their midst. Let thy heart be strong, for the good shall announce righteousness to the good. The righteous with the righteous shall rejoice, and shall offer congratulation to one another. But the sinners shall die with the sinners, and the apostate go down with the apostate. And those who practice righteousness shall die on account of the deeds of men, and be taken away on account of the doings of the godless. And in those days they ceased to speak to me, and I came to my people, blessing the Lord of the world. To set aside the portion of dough for a Kohen, Numbers 15:20. To give the shoulder, 2 cheeks, and stomach of slaughtered animals to a Kohen, Deuteronomy 18:3. To give the first shearing of sheep to a Kohen, Deuteronomy 18:4. To redeem the firstborn sons and give the money to a Kohen, Numbers 18:15. To redeem the firstborn donkey by giving a lamb to a Kohen, Exodus 13:13. To break the neck of the donkey if the owner does not intend to redeem it, Exodus 13:13. To rest the land during the 7th year by not doing any work which enhances growth, Exodus 34:21. Not to work the land during the 7th year, Exodus 25:4, not to work with trees to produce fruit during that year. Leviticus 25:4, not to reap crops that grow wild that year in the normal manner. Leviticus 25:5, not to gather grapes which grow wild that year in the normal manner. Not to gather grapes. Not to gather grapes which grow wild that year in the normal way. Leviticus 25:5, to leave free all produce which grew in that year. Exodus 23:11, to release all loans during the 7th year. Deuteronomy 15:3, not to pressure or claim from the borrower. Deuteronomy 15:2, not to refrain from lending immediately before the release of the loans for fear of monetary loss. Deuteronomy 15:9, the Sanhedrin must count 7 groups of 7 years. Leviticus 25:8, the Sanhedrin must sanctify the 50th Jubilee year. Leviticus 25:10. Leviticus 25:10. A permanent or temporary non-Jewish hired worker must not eat from it. Exodus 12:45. An uncircumcised male must not eat from it. Exodus 12:48, not to break any bones from the past child offering. Exodus 12:46, not to break any bones from the second past child offering. Numbers 9:12, not to leave any meat from the past child offering over until morning. Exodus 12:10, not to leave the second past child meat over until morning. Numbers 9:12, not to leave the meat of the holiday offering of the 14th until the 16th. Deuteronomy 16:4. To be seen at the temple on Passover, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Deuteronomy 16:16. To celebrate on these 3 festivals by bringing an offering. Exodus 23:14. To rejoice on these 3 festivals. Deuteronomy 16:14. Not to appear at the temple without offerings. Deuteronomy 16:16. Not to refrain from rejoicing with and giving gifts to the Levites. Deuteronomy 12:19. To assemble all the people on the Sukkot. Following the 7th year, the king publicly reads portions of the Torah. Deuteronomy 31:12. To assemble all the people on the Sukkot following the 7th year, the king publicly reads portions of the Torah. Deuteronomy 31:12. To set aside the firstborn animals to be eaten by the Kohanim and sacrificed unless they are blemished. Exodus 13:12. The Kohanim must not eat unblemished firstborn animals outside Jerusalem. Deuteronomy 12:17. There are about 6 million Jews in the US. The number of Jewish people worldwide is 14 million. A person must refrain from actions that cause illness and instead work on leading a healthy life. Thus, excessive drinking, smoking, the abuse of drugs, or the eating of harmful foods are forbidden. A Jew must aggressively pursue medical treatment when ill. Jewish diet is closely regulated by the Torah. Jewish inmates wishing to observe religious dietary laws are eligible for the religiously certified food component of the alternative diet program. A more thorough explanation of views this life as a corridor that leads to another existence, the belief in an afterlife where a person is judged and where the soul continues to flourish is a cornerstone of Jewish thought. Religious laws and practices relating to death and mourning are based upon 2 fundamental principles: honor due to a deceased human being and the need to respect and honor the mourner. Cremation is forbidden. Burial must take place as soon as possible following death. To delay interment is permissible only for the honor of the deceased, such as awaiting the arrival of close relatives from distant points, or if the Sabbath or a holy day intervenes. Caring for the dead, preparing them for burial, watching over them, and participating in the burial are all important religious tasks. Tearing a garment is the religiously proper way to express grief for the dead. The consensus of rabbinical rulings over the last several centuries has been that post-mortem examinations are generally forbidden since they result in desecration of the dead. Nevertheless, 2 specific allowances have been made. When there is a reasonable prospect that such an examination would produce information that could save the life of a seriously ill patient, when an investigation is required by civil or criminal statutes, when the general prohibition against autopsies is set aside, it is vital that these safeguards be followed. Only the minimum tissue samples needed for examination should be used. All organs and tissue removed from the body should be returned to the body for interment. Blood from the body must be collected and returned for burial, not discarded as waste. Every effort should be made to notify religious authorities before an autopsy is done. It is the chaplain's responsibility to see that appropriately reverent measures are in place and the rabbi or his representative is present. A religious authority should be in attendance when the autopsy is performed to ensure that all religious requirements are followed. As noted, embalming is forbidden. Jewish law provides for 3 successive periods of mourning. The first period is known as Shiva, which means 7, and refers to the 7-day period of mourning following the burial. An individual should observe Shiva for one's father, mother, wife, husband, son, daughter, brother, or sister. Ordinarily, a family observes Shiva in the home where the deceased lived. However, this is not mandatory. Shiva may be observed at any location. The practice of observing Shiva is often referred to as sitting Shiva. Inmates requesting to sit Shiva should be allowed to do so, following community customs as closely as practical. Practices observed during Shiva are numerous, including not washing, not wearing leather footwear, not sitting on a regular chair, and abstaining from work. Accordingly, a requesting Jewish should be permitted to be absent from a work assignment for the Shiva period. It is customary for friends and acquaintances to visit with a mourner during the Shiva period wherever possible, consistent with security considerations. Condolence visits by other inmates to the living quarters of the bereaved may be considered. Similarly, visiting room privileges may be extended to outside family and friends to the fullest extent possible. The funeral service is designed primarily for the honor and dignity of the deceased. The service consists of selections from the Psalms, a statement of the deceased's finer qualities that survivors should seek to implant in their own lives, and a memorial prayer. A mourner recites a special prayer called Kaddish at every daily service for a period of 11 months. Kaddish is recited only in the presence of a quorum of 10 Jewish males over the age of 13. Abayi said, if one threw a beehive which was 10 spans high but not 6 spans wide into the street, he is culpable. If, however, the beehive was 6 spans wide, he is free because it is considered a piece of private ground in itself. Rabbah, however, said he is not, even if it be less than 6 spans wide. Why so? Because it is impossible for twined reed not to exceed the given height. In case he threw the beehive with its mouth down, even if the hive is a trifle over 7 spans high, he is culpable. But if it is 7.5 spans high, he is not. Ashi, however, said he is, even if it is 7.5 spans high. Why so? Because the enclosing rim of the beehive is made for the purpose of containing something within and not to be attached to the ground. Hence, it is not included. A post 9 spans high, which stands in the street and people use it as to shoulder their burdens on. If one threw a thing and it rested on top of it, he is culpable. Why so? Because a thing that is less than 3 spans high is stepped upon by many. A thing between 3 and 9 spans high is not used either to step or to shoulder a burden on. But if it is 9 spans high, it is surely used to shoulder burdens on. Leviticus chapter 3. Leviticus chapter 3. If your offering is a fellowship offering and you offer an animal from the herd, whether male or female, you are to present before the Lord an animal without defect. You are to lay your hand on the head of your offering and slaughter it at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's sons, the priests, shall splash the blood against the sides of the altar. From the fellowship offering, you are to bring a food offering to the Lord, the internal organs and all the fat that is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on the both kidneys on the fat on them, near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which you will remove with the kidneys. Then Aaron's sons are to burn in it on the altar on top of the burnt offering that is lying on the burning wood. It is a food offering, an aroma pleasing to the Lord. If you offer an animal from the flock as a fellowship offering to the Lord, you are to offer a male or female without defect. If you offer a lamb, you are to present it before the Lord. Lay your hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of meeting. Then Aaron's son shall splash its blood against the sides of the altar. From the fellowship offering, you are to bring a food offering to the Lord. Its fat, the entire fat tail, cut off close to the backbone, the internal organs, and all the fat that is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which you will remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as a food offering presented to the Lord. If your offering is a goat, you are to present it before the Lord. Lay your hand on its head and slaughter it in front of the tent of the meeting. Then Aaron's son shall splash his blood against the side of the altar. From what you offer, you are to present this food offering to the Lord. The internal organs and all the fat that is connected to them, both kidneys with the fat on them near the loins, and the long lobe of the liver, which you will remove with the kidneys. The priest shall burn them on the altar as a food offering, a pleasing aroma. All the fat is the Lord's. That is a lasting ordinance from the generation to come. Wherever you live, you must not eat any fat or blood. Genesis 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the earth of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning the first day. And God said, "Let there be a vault between the waters to separate water from water." So God made the vault and separated the water under the vault from the water above it. And it was so. God called the vault sky, and there was evening, and there was morning the second day. And God said, "Let the water under the sky be gathered to one place, and let dry ground appear," and it was so. God called the dry ground land, and the gathered water he called seas. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let the land produce vegetation, seed-bearing plants and trees on the land that bear fruit with seed in it, according to their various kinds." And it was so. The land produced vegetations, plants bearing seed according to their kinds, and trees bearing fruit with seed in it according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the third day. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky to separate the day from the night, and let them serve as signs to mark sacred times and days and years, and let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And it was so. God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser light to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth, to govern the day and the night, and to separate light from darkness. And God saw that it was good. And there was evening, and there was morning the fourth day. And God said, Let the water teem with living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the vault of the sky. So God created the great creatures of the sea, and every living thing with which the water teems, and that moves about in it, according to their kinds, and every winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. God blessed them and said, "Be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the water in the seas, and let the birds increase on the earth." And there was evening, and there was morning the fifth day. And God said, "Let the land produce living creatures according to their kinds, so the livestock, the creatures that move along the ground, and the wild animals, each according to his kind." And it was so. God made the wild animals according to their kinds, the livestock according to their kinds, and all the creatures that move along the ground according to their kinds. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish in the sea, and the birds in the sky, over the livestock, and all the wild animals, and over all the creatures that move along the ground." So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God he created them. Male and female he created them. God blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth and subdue it. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky, and over every living creature that moves on the ground." Then God said, "I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. They will be yours for food, and to all the beasts of the earth and the birds in the sky, and all the creatures that move along the ground, everything that has the breath of life in it. I give every green plant for food." And it was so. God saw all that he had made, and it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth were completed in all their vast array. By the seventh day, God By the seventh day, God had finished the work he had been doing. So on the seventh day, he rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day and made it holy, because on it he rested from all the work of creating that he had done. This is the account of the heavens and the earth when they were created. When the Lord God made the earth and the heavens. Now no shrub had yet appeared on the earth, and no plant had yet sprung up. For the Lord God had not sent rain on the earth, and there was no one to work the ground. But streams came up from the earth, and watered the whole surface of the ground. Then the Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground, and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. Now the Lord God had planted a garden in the east in Eden, and there he put the man he had formed. The Lord God made all kinds of trees grow out of the ground, trees that were pleasing to the eye and good for food. In the middle of the garden were the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A river watering the garden flowed from Eden. From there it was separated into 4 headwaters. The name of the first is the Pishon. It winds through the entire land of Havilah, where there is gold. The gold of that land is good. Aromatic resin and onyx are also there. The name of the second river is the Gihon. It winds through the entire land of Cush. The name of the third river is the Tigris. It runs along the east side of Ashur. And the fourth river is the Euphrates. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, "You are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. For when you eat from it, you will certainly die." The Lord God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone. I will make a helper suitable for him." Now the Lord God had formed out of the ground all the wild animals and all the birds in the sky. He brought them to the man to see what he would name them, and whatever the man called each living creature, that was its name. So the man gave names to all the livestock, the birds in the sky, and all the wild animals. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep, and while he was sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. Holy, 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 holy is the Lord God Almighty. Holy, 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 holy is the Lord God Almighty. Without accepting offering. Holy, 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 holy is the Lord God Almighty. Thank you for joining services today.